All right, continuing with my Why Bitcoin series. This one is the freedom of Bitcoin. Why Bitcoin? Because it's freedom. Check out the couple other videos that I've recorded also for this and our continued series. But let's talk about the freedom of Bitcoin and what it represents.
Live under arbitrary rule of law. They don't have property rights. So in some sense, like, the reason why Bitcoin is freedom is it gives anybody with internet access, and we can get to that, property rights for the first time in history. They've never had actual property rights before. Property rights is something that the state kind of like gives out at its pleasure, and you kind of need the state to protect your property rights. Bitcoin gives anyone actual property rights that they can defend themselves with math to a very reasonable degree, and that to me is pretty much a revolution.
And one of the chapters of your book, just to dig a little deeper before we come to you on the end there, Craig, one of the chapters of your book is Bitcoin is a Trojan horse for freedom. What does this mean, like, put simply? How does this play out?
Well, I think that, generally speaking, there are big limitations to, as we discussed, access to Bitcoin, right? So, you know, I think that there is vast potential for us as a community to work on UX and make Bitcoin easier for people to use. Certainly that's like a big challenge of our time. But generally speaking, like, you know, there's also some personal responsibility there, right? We were talking about how knowledge is freedom, right? Like, books are freedom, knowledge is freedom, information is freedom, but you have to learn how to read first, right? So your parents or your community have to teach you how to read to access that freedom. So it's similar with Bitcoin. Like, we're gonna have to teach people how to Bitcoin to get the freedom. You're not just naturally born with that knowledge. I think it'll get a lot easier in the future, but this is an area where I just wanna devote my time to, is helping people understand it and get them involved and on board as soon as possible. I think the biggest regret we're gonna have in 10 years is that we didn't spend more time introducing people to Bitcoin.
Exactly.
That really hit home with me. Like, reading is a tool. It's an asset. It's a game changer, but you had to learn to read, right? Like, you just didn't know how to read. Bitcoin is no different. You have to learn about Bitcoin and how to utilize Bitcoin. Like, there's a learning process to this, but it's freedom. Like, he called it the Trojan horse of freedom, because it's an asset or a tool that you don't have to get permission to use. And if you think about it, there's not a lot of assets. So let's consider assets as a tool, because an asset is, you're buying an asset or acquiring an asset for the future, so that you have more hope in the future. You're buying it or you're acquiring that asset so that your future is better. Most assets you have to get permission to buy somehow. Whether it's a house and you have to get, title permission or mortgage permission. If it's a security, you have to get basically permission by admitting who you are, or, what you're buying or how much of. If you go to your bank or want to put something in your bank, you have to get permission through. There's all these things that, like, asset wise, you have to get permission by somebody. You can't just go out and do that. Now that sounds silly, or it did sound silly until Bitcoin came along. And you compare it to, if I want to go on and buy Bitcoin or cryptocurrency, I can go on and buy it right now. Bitcoin has been labeled a commodity. I can literally go on and buy a commodity that is an asset. Nobody knows. I don't have to get permission from anybody. And the reality is, I can buy it and not identify myself either. So nobody even has to know. Zero permission. And that is the Trojan horse of, or at least that's how I think I'm perceiving it, the way he's saying it is. That's the Trojan horse, is nobody sees it even coming yet, that you don't need permission for these things. You can improve your life. You can give yourself hope. You can acquire an asset to make your life better through Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. And that is the true freedom of it. And like we've spoke about, you can buy it in dollar amounts. Like the poorest of the poor in our world are buying and acquiring Bitcoin with no permission in a sheer fashion so that they can have hope for the future. What's hope? Freedom. Freedom to do whatever you want to do, but also to protect your family, protect your future. It's just, we don't stop. And again, being in America, we have it so good. We don't have a lot to worry about. But when you're having to worry about food and money to buy a house or these things, all of a sudden the freedom to do those things without permission is powerful.
And like what we've talked about before on the channel, if you've got $100,000 in American dollars sitting in your Bank of America account, and you walk up to the teller in Bank of America and you say, I'd like to withdraw 6,000 of those dollars, they're going to give you guff. They're going to say, whoa, what do you need that much money for? They're going to have to fill out paperwork. There's all sorts of money laundering informations and check boxes they have to do. And they might not even have that much cash available to give you, which I had that exact experience with the amount of money that I had. They could not give me $5,000. And it was like,
at a major bank,
at a major branch of a major bank. This wasn't like a mall branch. This wasn't an ATM kiosk. This was a major standalone building,
global
Bank of America. Yeah. And they would not give me my cash. And it's like, I could pay you $1 million in Bitcoin right now for a couple of bucks. Nobody has to know. Nobody has to care. Nobody has anything to do with it except for me and you.
Yeah. The freedom to transact in whatever way you want, the freedom to have hope. It's amazing to me. Like it once you are able to kind of start shifting your thoughts,
That's me. That's me screaming at Bank of America.
They gave you your money real quick. I mean, Wallace gets it. Like
William Wallace got it. He got it 400 years ago.
Yeah. Man, we've said it before. What an amazing time to be around. Bitcoin represents true freedom. I'm learning that. I'm discovering that. And then I see these things that, the more I learn, whether it's, video or written or whatever, the more my mind is blown, basically, the more powerful I realized Bitcoin and cryptocurrency and these things are. And which is kind of bad for me because I'm already spending way too many hours every week doing this stuff. But
I know. I have to limit myself when I got extra money. I mean, it's like, if I skipped lunch today, I could have $12 worth of Bitcoin. And that's $12 in 10 years could be worth, you know what I mean?
$42 million.
Yeah, when you break it down, it's like, I almost have trouble spending money anywhere else other than buying and investing and, and holding on to some crypto.
Which is the point I'm getting ready to record our next episode, and we're going to talk about that. So based on real estate and stuff. So that's right up your alley.